This is Paul Johnson with the Optimistic American. Now, today, you probably are going to have to work a little overtime to find the optimism in this story. It's a story of Jill and Matt McCluskey, whose little girl, when she was going to college, ended up in a relationship with someone who wasn't what he said or wasn't who he said he was. He ended up committing not only domestic violence, but he ended up murdering their little girl. They've worked very, very hard to try and ensure that other people or other young girls around campuses end up being safe, and that police departments, faculty, as well as students understand that the role that they play in this process. It's a interesting story, but it's also a heartwarming story to see the courage of this couple and what they've been able to do to keep their family together, as well as try to make a difference in the world. Thanks for being with us. If you like what we do, push that subscribe button. More importantly, when you're listening to this story and you get to the end, if you're moved by it, go to their website. Take part in what it is that they're doing. It's a great cause. Well, Jill, I'd like to welcome you to the Optimistic American today, and I'm very happy to have you here on our show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
All right, Jill, you and your husband Matt have done some amazing things with the McCluskey Foundation, and it's something I think that you can be very proud of. But I know that it was done in honor of your daughter. You had something that happened to you that just shouldn't happen to any parent. But before we get to that, if we could, why don't we just start with trying to understand who Lauren was? Because I know the foundation is really was about her and about her life.
Lauren was just a very special young woman. It's so important to me, but to her whole community, to the athletics community, uh, to the community of Pullman where she grew up, to the track community. She was a just an exceptional athlete from a young age. The first time I put her in a junior Olympic track meet in Spokane, which is about an hour drive from us. She was 8 years old and she broke broke the junior Olympic record in every event she entered, and she just continued to excel in track and field, and she won 19 USATF national medals, so she was All American in a number of events, and she specialized in the multi events and she loved high jump. She told me it made her feel like she was flying when she jumped over the bar. She was also a very good student, and and she loved to sing. So she always participated in choirs, and she even did some open mic nights. She loved to sing karaoke. She attended church, and in college she invited friends to go to church with her just so that she could belt out well, she also enjoyed the church, but she loved singing in church too. Uh, she was she received multiple scholarship offers to Division I colleges, and she decided to attend the University of Utah on a track scholarship. And she really enjoyed being there, and she was an honors student athlete there and competed in the Pac-12 there. Uh, and uh, she just really cared about other people. She volunteered for the Humane Society, and she especially loved cats. And tried to, she wanted to help socialize cats so they would be more adoptable. And let's see, just a wonderful girl. She was majoring in communication, and uh, she she was interested in actually being an academic advisor to help other students make it through make it especially student athletes make it through college, navigate that when it can be very difficult to juggle all that they have to do. She did an internship at her grandparents retirement community, and she wrote stories about all the residents and took their pictures and made it into a picture directory. And later so many of them just told me how wonderful they thought she was, and that they appreciated that she did that, and that they had this to keep. That was a product of her internship.
All right. So I've been a parent to several children. I have 14 grandkids. That doesn't happen without a lot of work. When did you first start to know that she was going to be special? When did you push her into track, or was it something that she just leaned towards, her personality as it began to blossom? Where did that come from?
She was naturally competitive, and she was fearless. And so I remember when she was 2 years old, I she could climb trees, you know? And so I had to always have my eye out, looking for where she was. But, she just enjoyed track and had fun with it, so I encouraged it. When she was 9, I told her, "Well, if you," and that was the bottom of the age group, so it's like a 9, 10 age group. I said, "If you qualify for nationals, I'll take you there." And I took her to the regional Junior Olympics, and she won that as a 9-year-old, and I have a picture. She's so much smaller than the other girls. And then, I took her to Baltimore. I didn't expect that to happen. And then the next year when she was 10, she tied for first place in Los Angeles in that national meet, and got second place because she had an extra miss in high jump. But she just really loved it. And I as a mom, I loved spending time with her. So these track trips that I would take her all around the country to get really good competition to compete with. It was just a time when that we could spend together and enjoy each other. And I really knew her deeply.
Jill, it's an important part of this story. What happened to Lauren? And if you feel comfortable, would you tell us what actually took place? What happened to your daughter?
Yeah. Uh, she she met a man who lied to her about his name and his age and his criminal history. And he was very charming at first, and he took her on dates. And uh, I think he seemed like a gentleman. But then it soon changed, and he became very controlling. And it turned into a bad relationship. And this all happened in less than a month. And uh and she she found out that he wasn't who he said he was. And she broke up with him. And uh and then that's where the trouble really started. He started harassing her. She reported him to the police. He was stalking her and looking into the window of her dorm. And then he started extorting her. And she took all of this to the police, and they really did nothing about it. And she kept contacting the police so many times, and nothing happened. And then, when she was walking home from her night class, or when she was actually getting out of the car from her night class, uh, he was lying in wait, and he shot her. He picked her up and shot her. And so we lost her that night. It was October 22nd, 2018.
the what happened with the police officers on the campus? Why didn't they respond?
I think there were many factors. I think that they didn't have procedures in place that they should have had in place for best practices. They were not trained well. So, for example, the man who killed her was on parole. They never checked his offender status if he was on parole. Uh, she never was put in contact with a victim's advocate. They never did a lethality assessment on her. Uh, and I also feel like at least the higher up police, didn't really care. It seemed like they were just minimizing it, didn't take it seriously, didn't care. So many factors like that. I've also heard from female there were some female policemen or police officers in the department. They were concerned about the culture that it was a culture that didn't take women seriously.
Do you think that that's a more than just that police department inside the university? Do you think that there's a culture of not believing young women when they make calls with these types of issues?
I think that there has been a culture that is like that, and that's one of the things that we're really trying to change in our foundation uh, to make a difference, to change the culture that responds poorly to women. And uh, I think that can happen with training in terms of um, there's victim center police training so that they understand the situation from the victim's point of view.
You list on your website some pretty shocking statistics about violence that happened to men and women that happen on a greater societal standpoint. Can you talk about those statistics a little?
Yeah. So some of the statistics are that uh, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have are will be victims during their lifetime of intimate partner violence. And and so uh, so I was fortunate enough that I until this happened to my daughter, I had never experienced uh, uh, relationship violence, and I wasn't really aware of how serious of a problem it is, and the implications, and what it the damage it causes. And so I think that that's part of that's one reason that I want to tell Lauren's story, that I want to speak up about it, is that I want people to understand the seriousness of relationship violence.
So you work on your foundation is working with other groups on other campuses. Can you talk about the work that you're doing on other campuses and maybe your relationship to Title IX? In fact, explain what Title IX actually is.
Okay, so Title IX prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex and on campus. And uh, so we after after Lauren's murder, we sued under Title IX that she was deprived in education on the basis of sex. She was being stalked on the basis of her sex, and 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 it deprived her not only of her education but of her life. And so part of what we're doing with our foundation is to develop best practices that can address the issues of how to best respond when there are situations of dating violence and stalking. And I can also talk about the other groups that we're working with in our campus safety initiatives. Is
Yes, definitely do.
that okay? Yeah. uh, so we have 5 campus safety initiatives that my foundation is working on. The first one is just to increase the awareness of dating violence and stalking. And uh and so we've done on a number of campuses. Um we've had memorial walks where students and on campuses where and they're mostly student led. We come to we have my husband and I have attend some of them, but not all of them. But it's to it's for the students there to remember victims of dating violence and stalking. So not only Lauren, but all victims, and to understand the seriousness of the problem, and to understand the resources that are available. Uh, we A second initiative is the adoption of Lauren's promise, and so that was something that I was thinking of as a professor. What can I do so that if another student is in the situation that Lauren was in? And so as a professor, I have a course syllabus that is kind of the contract for the course, and it says it gives a bunch of information, such as when the exams will take place and things like that. But I can put on that course syllabus that um, I made Lauren's promise, which is that I will listen and believe you if someone is threatening you. And so we have uh, that has been really successful, and that was one of the first things that we started working on. And we have professors, at least one professor at about 300 universities, who have adopted Lauren's promise. It was interesting. I was in France this summer for an academic conference. A professor from a university in Germany that I'd never even heard of came up to me and she told me, "I have Lauren's Promise on my course syllabus." So it's all, it's not only in the US, it's in Australia, University of Guam. There's a professor that does it. So it's really been amazing. Uh, then our third initiative is that we want to work with experts to develop best practices for effective response to when students are in a situation such as Lauren, and it's so important in that. And that was one of the biggest problems at the University of Utah. If they had those best practices in place, it would have made all the difference. And so that you, for example, that you check offender status of every single person that is, that complaint is filed against. That would be a normal thing at most police, most uh, for most police officers. It wasn't the practice at the University of Utah. Uh, so if we can, we're working on that, and then we want to develop and distribute a campus safety score. And so that campus safety score would be based on those best practices. And so we want to create something that that creates an incentive for universities to do the right thing and to adopt these best practices and put them in place. And so we're working on that. We've talked with some of the rankings companies such as US News, and they're interested in it. That so if it's they said that it must be based on objective data, but we can if we can have universities adopt that, and then that will provide information to prospective students and their parents about the safety practices at that university, and but then also create the incentive for them to live up to that too. If they Because universities respond to rankings, they want to get better. And then finally we want to share resources to strengthen dating violence and stalking laws also, and just be a place that can offer resources. And so I give talks, and I think some of the most effective talks that I give are to law enforcement groups. And I've been working with another foundation called SASCO. So Surviving Assault Standing Strong is what it stands for. And they do police training, and so they've worked on these victim training courses. And they were saying that when you share Lauren's story and they see her and understand what happened to her, that they are changed, and that's the most important thing, I think, is to change that culture that cares and is responds with urgency and listens. And not every person who complains will be always telling the truth, but investigate it and find out.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on criminal justice issues as mayor of Phoenix, and when you start looking at what works, you can add police officers ad infinitum, and sometimes all you find is that the crime rate keeps going up. Now, of course, more police officers means more arrests. More arrests means the crime rate goes up, but you don't necessarily feel safer by that in itself. It has to be a cultural change. I think one of the best things that we saw was when we saw engagement between the police department and neighborhoods, as an example, the block watch organizations. You talked about how, as people got to know the program, people repeat Lauren's promise. Well, that's people buying in to the idea that there's a problem. If we can't get neighbors in a neighborhood group to buy into, maybe they have a crime problem in their area and the police can't solve it by themselves, your chances of fixing it become very low. But if neighbors get engaged and the police department takes it serious, if you can combine those two things and create communication between them, your level of reducing crime goes through the roof. And it seems to me that that's true also on campuses with these types of issues. This has to be an engagement by certainly the police department, but they're only one part of the puzzle. You have to get the students, the parents, the faculty. You have to get everybody bought into this is a serious issue. And if we pay attention to it and if we focus on it, we can make a difference.
That's so important. Yeah, and I think that's a great example of a parallel, a parallel issue, and we need everyone involved. So, and that's something that I like to emphasize is that uh, in Lauren's case, there were so many failures. Also, university housing was notified. Uh, the the counseling, I'm sure the counseling knows, although they have not shared her counseling records with me. But she was seeing a counselor at the University of Utah, and I know that she told the counselor about what was going on. And so we want to have best practices across all um, the different administrative units, but and with the faculty and the staff and the students. But there also has to be communication and cooperation.
Okay, so um, I'm going to change the subject a little bit because I want to talk about you and Matt.
Okay.
When I was a young boy, my younger brother passed away, and it had a devastating effect on our family. I have 9 brothers and sisters, and uh, my mom and dad went into a pretty rough period. They blamed one another. It ended up breaking up the family.
Wow.
It was a pretty horrific event that took place. Um, how you and Matt are doing an amazing thing. I mean, how do you get there? How as a parent do you after what happened do you go find purpose again and meaning and do what you're doing? It's pretty astonishing to me.
It I would say it's the hardest thing, in my opinion at least, it's the hardest thing that can happen to someone, to lose a child. And uh and it has been hard, incredibly hard for both of us. We have uh, hold on to each other, and we also have a son. So, and to our son, uh, we have felt the love of our community, and the broader community that has supported us in these endeavors. And uh, Soon after Lauren was murdered, we started the foundation, and really to honor her. And and it initially we were thinking about things that she cared about. So she really cared about athletics, and she really cared about animals. And so I think part of it. So, for example, uh, our community donated to expand the animal shelter in our community, and there's a new wing that's just for cats, a cat wing, and they named it after Lauren. And and I just remember that that meant so much to us, that to have her, that people would remember her, and remember her for what she was, for who she was, and she was just amazing. And um and then and then as you continue to work through it, uh I think it would be easy to be, angry about what happened. And instead, I we just decided that we were going to try to make a difference for the future, and for future students, that this wouldn't happen, that they wouldn't that so other parents wouldn't lose their daughters when they're away at college. And um and so doing this work really really did help us in our grief. That it's been so meaningful for us, and has really made a difference, and helped us, to keep going forward, keep waking up every morning, and keep going forward.
Yeah, it's amazing. Viktor Frankl is one of my favorites, and he talks about how you find meaning in very, very dire situations. He was in Auschwitz, and his family, 9 of his family members, he said that they took 9 to the left and 1 to the right, and the 9 they took to the left, he thought they were going to, to take them someplace else. He didn't know where, and he thought that they were going to kill him, and he didn't know that the opposite was true. But he said that you find meaning in who and what we love. Certainly, I think you love Lauren, what we create, how we make a difference, how we serve other people. And sometimes we find it in struggle itself. And it seems to me that you're exemplary in terms of being able to take that and to do exactly what you've done. And my guess is, from Lauren's standpoint, that's what she would want. It's not just honoring her. It's it's making certain that her parents have purpose and that they can find a way for their marriage to work and for their family to continue on. Anyway, it's a beautiful story. I know Lauren was also an athlete, and you put a lot of focus on athletics and I believe on female athletics. Tell me about her, again, engagement in that, and why it is that you put such a big focus on it. Why you see it as being an advantage.
Yeah. So Lauren was always, she had a great athletic talent, but she also worked hard at it, and I feel that it really helped shape her to be the person that she was. And uh, I also felt that in my own life, I was a um, I also competed in sports, so in track and basketball and water skiing, and I feel like that helped me in my career, for example, to be not afraid to fail, because in athletics you win and lose, and then you keep going forward. And I think a lot of success has to do with that you fail and you learn from it, and then you continue going forward. And so uh, I supported I supported and encouraged Lauren in athletics, and I think it really built up her confidence and made her a confident young woman. And it's also healthy, and I feel like there's so many benefits from sports. uh so one of the first things that we wanted to do was to establish some scholarships in Lauren's name, and this was really separate from our foundation, uh because for the foundation we don't want it to be tied to any one university. So we don't want people to think, if they donate to our foundation, oh, I'm giving to the um, University of Utah or Idaho, or something like that. But we have established some scholarships for female track and field athletes, and I think that that is something that was special to us, was special to Lauren. And if they can hear her story and understand what she did and what happened to her, how she lived and how she died, I think it makes a big impact. And so the one of the places where Lauren worked out was at the University of Idaho is just 7 miles from us. So we're at Washington State University. There are two college towns right next door to each other on the border of Washington and Idaho. And she used to work out at the indoor track at the University of Idaho. And and they even before we gave them any um, donations at all, they decided to name a track meet after her. So the Lauren McCluskey Memorial Open track meet at the University of Idaho. And and at that track meet, they told Lauren's story, and that she used to exercise. I mean, she used to work out here, and she competed there too as a high school student. She competed against college athletes there, and even won sometimes. And so uh, it was that meant a lot to us. And then we made a donation to the to that to the program, so that they could resurface their track, and where Lauren worked out so much. And they named the track after Lauren. actually, and it has so Mondo is the group that that the company that makes those surfaces. So they have some of the fastest surfaces in the world. It's been used at the Olympic tracks and the World Championship tracks. And so Mondo surfaced that track, and it has her name right in there, and it's a beautiful track. And I feel that uh, Lauren's name will continue. People will remember her story, and it will continue to change the culture in the response to victims.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. The So first on the sports, I do think sports plays an important role. What sports give you is it's not that it teaches you how to win, it teaches you how to lose. And we lose a lot in life, right? There are a
Yes.
lot of things that happen to us that seem like setbacks. And what sports do is it gives you the ability to do your best. And when you lose, still go be friends with the people who won and with the other people who lost. To recognize that that was just an event. It's not life in itself. It's just an event, and it's something that's something that you should strive to do better at, something that you should work at. But you also have to keep it in perspective. What I found is I do believe that oftentimes when you watch people who've been engaged in sports, they have a better ability to be able to socialize than people who haven't been. We hire salespeople, and one of the questions I always ask is, what's been their involvement in professional sports? Because what you find is people who have been competitive but yet have learned how to lose, they're much better at facing rejection and dealing with problems. All right, so I'm going to ask you for four pieces of advice. I think that you're exceptionally well suited to give these four pieces of advice. Here's the first one.
Okay.
To those young girls who are running on those tracks today, to the people who've been engaged in universities that you've spoken to the students that are engaged today that think maybe it's not a problem, or that they're so focused on other things in their life they couldn't imagine. What's your advice to them? To the students themselves.
To the students, I would say that please just be observant of your friends, and if you see something that is not right, and that might be of a violent relationship, please say something to the person, like, "Oh, I'm concerned about this," and also talk to someone. You can also report to, say, the housing, the resident assistant who at a dorm, for example, or to a professor, or even to the campus police. I would, if you make sure that you are talk about these issues, do not hide them. If they are a victim themselves, please tell someone. And I think that it's you have to be very brave, actually, to report that something like this is happening to you. Not only because of that you might be afraid of the person who's controlling, but it's also, you might feel shame, uh, and that, oh, I let myself get into this situation. Do not feel that. Please report it. Ask for help.
All right, not to faculty. What would your advice be?
To professors, please make Lauren's promise. I will listen and believe you if someone is threatening you. Uh, just be ready to listen, and be ready to uh, connect that student to resources.
Is that the same advice you'd give to the police department, or would you expand beyond that?
To the police department, I would say that they need to, well, really just to listen and to be responsive and to respond with urgency. If you're going on vacation, make sure that someone else is handling your cases, and is ready to answer your phone if you're not answering your phone. uh, to make sure that you're using all the best practices, that you're not relying on an old way of doing things, just to and to also have be caring and care about the people that you are keeping safe, and 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 realize that they're a person with many people that love them.
Yeah, it's, the police department, we've had lots of discussions with them, and one of the things that I've said to them in the past is they tend to think of things as, they get a caller on somebody, and then they have to have the right evidence, and then they have to present that to a prosecutor, and then they have to get a conviction. And if they don't get to the conviction, their time was wasted. And
Mm,
my answer to them is that's not true. Oftentimes, when you get involved and you get engaged and you stop the problem, you've stopped something from happening that could have been a lot worse. Sometimes people just knowing that the police department is there and that there are consequences to their action causes them to back off, causes them to not do things that they shouldn't do. And when they begin to look at that purpose differently, all of a sudden they recognize it's not just their goal to get the caller and to get somebody convicted. It's to try to prevent the problem in the first place. And by the way, I'm not sure. It sounds like you would have a similar opinion. I think that the police departments have a very, very tough job. I'm a big supporter of PD. The biggest challenge is, as I said earlier, they need input. If you're a PD and you're isolated from your community and you're not listening to them and you're not engaged with the neighborhoods and with the colleges and the universities and the students and the people, sooner or later, the problems will get bigger because you can't fix it on your own. You need engagement from other people to be successful, and engaging them has to become one of the big items that our police departments do. Okay, so I want you to give advice to parents, but I don't want you to give advice to parents who have to worry about this happening. I think you've already done that through the show. I'd love you to give advice to parents who are dealing with whatever type of tragedy they have today. How did they get through it? What advice would you give them? Where did they go next?
so you're saying if a tragedy has already happened.
Yes,
Yeah.
the advice you'd give to parents.
And I actually have a lot of parents who have lost children that come to me, and it's just really hard. I think that different people are helped in different ways. So, for example, uh, one uh, one person who I'm close to lost her daughter also, and for her a grief support group really helped. For me, it did not. I I feel like I'm trying to comfort all the other people, and it just drains me.
I can
So
see that in you.
yeah. So I think that you need to see what works for you, but I think the important I hope that this is universal, that the most I think the biggest thing that you can do is to try to do good things in the name of your child, and have a purpose. Relationships, of course, are so important, and if you have a relationship with God, that's very your faith can help. uh, your family and your friends, just lean on friends, and it can I think it can bring people together, and that you know that there's this community that supports and loves you.
There's a book that I read a long time ago. I have to remember the name of it here in a second, but one of the story was written by a cellular biologist, and he talks about how deer oftentimes will have a buck that's in the center, and there are other bucks on the outside, and the other bucks are isolated. But one day, the buck who's in the center will be challenged by one of the other bucks on the outside. He'll lose, and he'll have to go to the outside, and he never lives for more than 6 months.
Mm.
Um, the loss can be such a tragic, terrible thing. It can have a huge effect on your life. He points out it's not a statistical anomaly that when people who are oftentimes married for 50 years, when one passes away, the other one passes away 6 months later. Um, this idea of connection to other human beings, and recognizing that we have an obligation to something greater than ourselves, in itself becomes self-serving. at least in my experience. The fact that we help other people and that we go out and we engage in a broader purpose and we try and find a way to help them through their grief or through their problems or to prevent a problem, it gives us a sense of who we are and a sense of connection that is absolutely necessary in the human being to survive. All right, so here's the last question I would ask you. So there are people watching this who are going to feel stressed and they're going to feel helpless. They're going to feel like, oh my gosh, these things are happening, and maybe my child will be affected by it, or maybe I will be affected by it, or my girlfriends or my other friends may be affected by it. How can people help? How can they get involved with your foundation? How can they play a role in trying to make a difference on this issue?
So anyone can make Lauren's Promise. We have it's people from dance studios to people at restaurant owners. Anyone can make Lauren's Promise, and if if you can if you can listen and be and show that you're open to if someone is facing this, you can they can tell you, then you can make change. And so it can be a peer, it can be student to student, it can be or just a friend, so anyone can make Lauren's Promise. And we send out we have these Lauren Promise stickers. We send them out for free to anyone who orders them, and so that's at laurenmccluskey.org. You can order one. uh, Also, we have resource cards that are like business sized cards that we can place in restrooms or locker rooms. And a lot of times, if someone is in a controlling relationship, the only time that they're alone is when they're in the restroom. And so that can be very discreet, and also has a QR code that they could scan on their phone to get information. So we really just want to change the culture, and part of that can be making Lauren's Promise. Uh, we are expanding our walks and races, and so and that's to promote the just awareness of the issue. Uh, and you can have your own walk, and we can help you organize that if you wanted to get at that level of participation. uh, or and you can we're also really interested in using the wisdom of crowds. And so so for uh, our campus safety score initiative, we we want to understand from a variety of people how what they would want in a campus safety score. So how should campuses be evaluated for safety? And and so there have been studies that if you have that crowds, if they're uncorrelated, uh, that they have better prediction levels than any one expert. And so we would like anyone to come on our website and give us some feedback. What would you include in a campus safety score? And then also we are taking donations too. If you want to give to help make a difference in changing the culture that responds poorly to dating, violence, and stalking.
All right, what's your website? We'll put it up on our screen, but what's your website?
So it's laurenmccluskey.org. So
Lauren McCluskey.
LAUREN, yeah, MCCLUSKEY.
Okay, so I just want to say one last thing. I'll actually give you the last word, but this would be my last comment. I know my younger brother would be even more devastated if he saw what happened to my family. The courage and the bravery that you and your husband Matt have shown, and being able to not only keep going but taking on a bigger issue, I know is not only important to your son, it's important to the community, and I know it would be important to your daughter. I just want to tell you, from my standpoint, God bless you and your family. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I know you're making a difference.
Well, Thank you so much, and I really appreciate that you are telling this story on your platform. We appreciate it so much, and uh, we hope we just hope to make a difference. And we've heard stories. People have come up. Young women have come up to me and have told me that because of Lauren's story, they got out of a relationship, for example, or 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 that they help someone else. So I know it can make a difference, and it's just so important that we care about each other. And I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you.
All right, Godspeed, Jill. Thank you again to you and your family, and appreciate you being on the Optimistic American.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Optimistic American show. Help us grow by subscribing to our channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like and a comment. There is so much more that we have planned, and we can't wait for you to embark upon this journey with us.